I'll call to order this Thursday, July 10th, 2025 meeting of the Underhill Planning Commission. No one's on, right? So no public comment. And does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Okay, Larry, I think you were.
Yeah, just a quick heads up. So the trails ordinance, the draft language, there was, I was really struggling with the initial wording that we had presented and discussed at the last time.
Yep.
And so I decided that just for grins and giggles that I would run it through AI to see if it could give me a little bit more of a straightforward, bulleted, step-by-step version of the long, torturous, 80-word sentences that were part of the draft.
And it was better, wasn't it?
It was better. So I faithfully kept the draft terms, like the language and the, what it was we talked about and agreed on at the last meeting, but it looks different because it's broken up a little bit better, a little more logical.
It's funny, for work I had like a 1.5-page thing that was like steps, and I thought it was great, and my business partner was like, do you think we could get it to a page? And he put it in ChatGPT.
Yes.
And then I kicked it out, I was like, oh, that's way better than mine.
So I reposted it on the calendar, the town website calendar page for this meeting in the new version 3, but it's the same language, it's just rearranged to be a little bit more straightforward and easy to follow, which I think is what we should always strive for in drafting amendments.
Perfect.
That's what it looks like.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Sure.
Okay, so I guess before we get to that, we just have one thing and then right back into that, which is setting dates for public hearings. I guess my initial question, which would be throwing myself under the bus, but this was my idea. Am I premature here, Larry? Do we want to, if we set them far enough out, I think we're good, right? Because we're still going to want to get these event venues in it, but presumably, if we just go out a month, we'll be done by then.
Yeah, so scheduling guidelines. We have to, in addition to having a published warning, at least 15 days prior to the first hearing, we also have to prepare, it would be my job to prepare a written report on the proposal, which has to include findings regarding the proposed bylaws, furtherance of the goals of the municipal plan, its compatibility with proposed land uses and densities, and how it carries out any specific proposals for any planned community facilities. And that has to be shared with all of our neighboring municipalities around Underhill. And that's in addition to the language of the changes that we're proposing. So that doesn't have to all get published, but it has to be ready to be sent out in conjunction with the publication at least 2 weeks in advance of the actual hearing date. So all that is to say that if we set a hearing date about a month out, we should be able to do it, because the report's not that complicated, but it has to go out with the warning to surrounding towns.
And we need 2 dates, right? 2 meetings, you said? Or?
Well, I think it's up to us. It's like, the question is, how much feedback do we expect on the work we've done so far? If it was something that we expected a lot of feedback on, sawmills, then we might say, okay, we'll do sawmills in one hearing and we'll do the other 3 in another hearing, or something like that. So it's really up to us to decide what schedule works for us.
What if we did a hearing and then we did everything together and we made sawmills the last item and had a hard end time to the meeting?
We could do that. That would be strategic.
So you're thinking, like, just to be extra cautious here, you said, what if we went like the week of and this would be between 2 planning commission meetings, though if we wanted to skip a meeting or something, that would be up to us, right? We're all volunteering time.
We could do it in the context of a scheduled planning commission meeting in lieu of having other business.
Well, then I'm wondering, do we do it so that would put us at either August 7th or August 21st, but the 7th feels tight, that's not even 30 days. So should we do the 21st? And skip our regularly scheduled meeting and do the hearing instead?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Does that work for you, Larry?
Yeah.
Is that what it is to do? Okay. So August 21st.
Does the select board come, or are they just optional, or how's
It
that?
is optional for them to attend. They do have a chance to weigh in. They are also required to have a separate public hearing of their own on the proposed amendments after we're done with it. So we do a public hearing. We have the opportunity, if we feel it's important, to take the feedback that we got from the public hearing and change the draft. And then we send it on to the select board. Usually the town attorney reviews the draft in between, and then the select board gets it and they can look at it and they can completely diss it and not do anything with it. Or they can say, oh, this is great, let's talk about it. And in order to talk about it, they need to first have a public hearing. And they can do that, their own public hearing, in the context of a regular select board meeting. And then based on what they hear, they may not hear anything, or they may hear a lot, they can then change the draft themselves. If they change it significantly, they send it back to us to make sure that we're okay with any changes. And then we have to have another public hearing. And then once that whole process of revisions are done, then the select board can take action on it. So typically it might take 3 or 4 months at a minimum for all these back and forths to happen.
So, conservative is not the word I'm looking for, like a reasonable estimate might be, we could be done with this by the end of 2025.
Yes.
And we only have 4 items that we're gonna.
We have trails,
ADUs.
event venues, ADUs, and sawmills.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's nothing else that nothing.
Not
else,
yet.
right? Yeah.
Nothing else we're close on.
Yeah.
So.
So, I don't know, what's the pleasure of the group? Do you want to try to schedule all 4 hearings in that one August 21st meeting? And see
I
what
can't
happens?
believe there's gonna be a lot of,
3 of them should get no comment. 3 of them should get no comment. I would say.
yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Is it enough time that as Larry was suggesting, maybe spinning sawmills on their own? It's good to knock them on all at once, but.
I mean, what we could always do a second hearing if we had to. I just think that
Yeah, if we
the
can
whole
get them
hearing's
all at
basically
once.
going to be sawmills.
Yeah, probably. Right.
I would assume.
Yeah, right, I would think too, so.
Yeah, and you don't have to, if you decide to extend the hearing to another session, you don't have to rewarn it. Under
Okay.
statute, you can just say, this hearing will be continued to this date certain, and then, that's enough.
Is that good?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
And we can make it
I think
2 hours.
yeah.
You think?
Yeah, with a hard ending.
Yes, right, and then it becomes the question of how do you manage the participation.
Well, we need formal, which I've been typically terrible at, I know, but like for this,
Yeah.
we need like hard rules, right? Like you get 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Everyone, because if
Yeah.
20 people want to talk, there's no other way to do it.
Yes,
Do we have a number for that, or do we make one up now?
I think it's actually at the discretion of the chair. So Brian can decide 5-minute limit, and I'm gonna appoint a timekeeper on your phone or something.
Right.
Everybody, when they start, will get the countdown, and when they reach the countdown, they get a 1-minute warning, and then,
Well, I obviously don't want to set them out. What do people think the time limit should? I literally made up 5 minutes, obviously. So what do people think?
Could you suggest that people come in with specific requests for changes of language to what's written?
It's a good idea. Like if you have one.
Beforehand, just ask them to have that, maybe submit it and come with that, so that could be addressed as just as a subject
That'd be
line,
great.
so it just doesn't get into a kind of an arguing.
Can we do that?
Discussion off track.
Yeah, I like that.
Uh-huh.
We could ask them to. Hopefully they do it.
In the
Right.
morning,
It's a good idea. And do people generally think 5 minutes is the right amount of time, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
who's a good tough timekeeper here?
I could do.
Tiffany,
I could do
you
the
feel
time,
it feels
yeah.
like you to me. dude.
I couldn't-
I'll give
I
them
might
the 1 minute.
I know that.
I'm the least
Or if you-
diplomatic, so I
Yeah.
won't do it.
Okay.
I used to do it for public radio events.
Oh, so
Oh, all right.
you're
Okay.
a pro.
All right.
Look at that, dude. Look at her. She's got it. She's a pro.
Sam, you're done.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So I think you've got the right team here.
Yeah. I can stand behind you if we need to.
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, in Burlington, at the city council, where there's often contentious topics that
Sure.
attract a big crowd and everybody wants to talk,
Yeah.
right? But they have like the a little device on the table where people sit to testify, and it's got a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. It's automatically goes off,
That's
so
smart.
people know where they stand exactly. And they only give people 2 minutes.
Yeah, 5
2 minutes.
5 feels like it's pretty generous.
It does.
It's not 5's good.
I was gonna say 3.
I feel
And
like
as long as I know where the mute is on the.
Yeah. Maybe you could download the Jeopardy, Final Jeopardy.
Cue that up when we're getting
this
close.
is why you didn't get that job. All right, is that the basics that we need to?
So.
Okay. Do you and your friend AI want to take us through the new trails ordinance?
Sure. Share this with the folks at home should they materialize. Let's see.
What application is this, Larry, that you're using?
It's ChatGPT.
Oh, it,
Yes. There it is. Okay, so yeah, like I said, content-wise, nothing's really changed. So what it did was it took some long sentences and it broke them up into provided that, and then trails incidentals who are residential use are open to the public. And I did add at no charge, just to make it clear, non-commercial. Trail width does not exceed 6 feet. Trail is constructed in compliance with the standards in the Trails Handbook. And then the same thing we said before about trail bridges and access points should be limited to areas where the stream or river channel is narrowed or already confined or permanently constrained. Location and design of bridges and access points must be approved and permitted, I added that, as we discussed, by the stream alteration engineer or other designated staff from A&R. So the 2 things I changed are in yellow, and I also crossed out this word "or" just because it sounded like 2 ors in a row. I didn't ditch that part.
Yeah.
So it seemed unnecessary. And then the other thing I changed was just at the start of the conditional uses section, I realized that the new language that we came up with was to replace an existing clause. So I did that cross out in red of the existing clause that's being superseded now by the new language, just so it's clear, what's being changed. And then again, this is all bulleted out. Replace long sentences by bullets. So it starts off by trails intended for commercial use, which is why it's under conditional use review. And then the rest of it's exactly the same as under the permitting section, permitting uses in the beginning. And then also simplified a little bit the last one because the piece about not encroaching into buffers or setbacks didn't seem to follow from the introductory sentence very well. So I said, basically non-motorized, unproved trails, et cetera. This is all exempt from the need for a permit, that if they don't encroach into buffers or setbacks listed in 3.19, and they do not involve any of the B1 through 5 constructions, then they don't need a permit at all. And there was a problem in our original draft, which was this 10.2 language appeared to conflict with what we said before about needing a permit, in that the sections that talked about stream bridges and stream crossings implied that you'd have to get a permit regardless. And it seemed, if I thought about it, I was like, well, so you have this trail that winds its way through the woods, and all of a sudden it comes to a stream that has to cross. And so the trail that goes, the part of it that goes through the woods doesn't need a permit. But as soon as it crosses a stream, it needs a permit. It was like, what? It doesn't quite compute. So in this exemption section, I separated out that piece of, if it doesn't have a bridge crossing, then it's good to go without a permit. But if it does have a bridge crossing, it needs either a permit or zoning permit or a conditional use permit, depending on whether it's for commercial use or just for public, not for profit, no charge use. That make sense?
Yeah.
I was just trying to sort of follow the logical sequence. Because you don't want to have one project that has to follow two different permitting standards.
Right.
And then in the end, I added just some comments where just explaining what I changed. And David Edson suggested that we add some language to the effect that property owners may still need to obtain state and federal permits beyond those that are spelled out in these sections. However, I did check to research that, and both the current land use regulations in Chapter 1 as well as the Trails Handbook both have very explicit statements that if you need additional state permits as a property owner, it's your permit, it's your responsibility to get those. And so I don't feel like there's any point in reiterating that for this, just this one section. It's like, that's an overarching principle that runs throughout our permitting processes. It's on the property owner. And, you know, it's not like it should be any great surprise, because if they look at the Trails Handbook, which they're directed to do in our draft, it says it there, that they have to go check for state permits, if any are apply. And it also says it in the section 1.3 of the land use regs, which is basically the introduction to the whole thing. So I think that's enough. I'm not a big fan of reiterating things that are said.
Yeah.
And you know, if someone had a question about whether they needed a permit, come in and talk to the zoning administrator. The zoning administrator would say, "Oh, you're crossing a stream. You need to talk to so and so at A&R." So it's not like anybody's going to be blindsided by this expectation.
Questions, concerns, comments?
I just had a couple of questions after reading over it. Just as far as what constitutes commercial versus no charge, because there is a local bike club which has dues.
Yes.
There are some people have events that they take a donation or a fee, and how would that fit into charge versus no charge?
So bike club.
It's a nonprofit, right? The bike club?
Yeah, but yeah.
And we need to make that more clear, or is that not necessary?
Do we need to?
As part of that, why I inserted the phrase "at no charge" in the first one, because I feel like that's pretty clear. I think no charge. I mean, you can just jump on the bike.
Donation no charge?
I think it's a form of charge. I mean, just to use your example, so if a bike club was managing some trails, like Kingdom Trails in Eastburg, Vermont, then you know, you have to join in order to use the trails. Then that's a form of commercial use. I think, even though it might be a nonprofit that's doing that, because there's money changing hands, right? And anytime there's money changing hands, it's commercial at some level. Whereas if you have a trail that's just always open and doesn't say, you know, there's a trail use fee, blah, 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 then I think it's pretty clearly at no charge.
Particularly here, I think, Tim, like, I'm assuming you're Brewster River.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, like, Kingdom Trails, like, you know, you've been on their website. If you log on, it's like you have to pay $50 for the day or whatever it is. Whereas you can go ride any of the BRMDC trails and never give them a penny for 30 years if you want to, right? And not advocating for that for anyone listening from the Mount And the money doesn't even, what makes me feel even better about it is the money doesn't actually go to them, right? Because like if I join the mountain bike, I'm joining VIMBA, and then VIMBA is sending money to individual chapters. I don't know, does that make you feel good about it, or?
I guess it could be argued. It's kind of broad and vague, right? So that anybody could try to make the argument that you're accepting fees somehow indirectly, but I don't know.
And I feel like
we definitely don't want it to be vague, because this is part of what we're trying to do.
exactly. It should be as crystal clear and black and white as possible. And I feel like, you know, the broader question of what's a commercial use. I mean, you know, if someone is just allowing the public to roll on existing trails or woods roads, and there's no improvements, there's no maintenance costs, no signage, I mean, that's pretty explicitly falls into this first category. But anytime you're talking about trail improvements ranging from having a little parking area with a signpost that, welcomes people and has a map, or, having junction signage, to putting in, boardwalks. Anytime you're talking about that, you're really, somebody's got to pay for it, and I mean, maybe they'll be benefited by getting a grant, but in most cases, if a club is going to the trouble and expense of doing that kind of improvement, they have to have some kind of a business plan in mind about how it's going to get built in the first place and how it will be maintained. Because trails don't maintain themselves, trees fall and there's washouts, and boardwalks are at some level temporary. And so, a club that is going to manage a trail system for use with an expectation that people will pay fees, whether it's a donation or an actual fee charged for a trail pass, they build a budget around that, and it's a different type of a trail system than just informal woods roads that people happen to mountain bike on. So, I mean, I think in practice it'd be easier to see it, to know what the difference is, because it looks different, it functions differently.
My concern with that is that one of the like exact situation that brought this up is where we're trying to clarify it, is a local mountain bike club where you don't have to pay, right? You could like never join the Vermont Mountain Bike Association and ride all the trails in the state. Except for something like the Kingdom Trails or something, right? Like, it's more of like, it is a donation, right?
It's a volunteer group that maintains the trails and puts signage up and is part of that, but it's up to the discretion of the landowner to keep that trail open at their discretion of letting people go on there for no charge.
Right. So I think we were trying to draw the line where, like, I mean, where that is okay, like they don't need permits, but if you wanted to open some large commercial operation, like you do need permits. I think that's the needle we're trying to thread.
Right, and I, to me, the analogy that's very familiar throughout a lot of rural Vermont is the vast trail system.
Right.
For some of these.
You need to buy a annual pass for vast road, don't you?
Yeah.
But who's enforcing that,
No,
right?
there's no cops enforcing.
Is it meaningful if it's not enforced? But it's an honor system, and most snowmobile users know about the work that the organization does to maintain the trails, including bridge maintenance and marking and clearing blowdowns and all that kind of stuff, drainage issues. So most people voluntarily get a sticker, they pay for it, and VAST gets them the funding, and they do their work and maintain the trails. So I feel like this is probably a similar situation. I don't know how it would be qualitatively different than that situation, unless the organization doing the work and charging the fees or suggesting donations actually has people out patrolling the trails and hailing people down who are riding bikes on those trails, saying, where's your sticker or your membership card or whatever. This scenario seems unlikely at best, just like it's unlikely that you're going to have vast cops patrolling the woods and stopping people in those tracks.
I think they have game wardens and sheriff's patrols.
Do they?
Patrolling, and they're looking for stickers.
Right.
I think Kingdom Trails might actually have people.
I guess it does ultimately go back to the landowner who's not charging, so I guess that covers it. Because me as a landowner, I have trails on my land, and they're open, I'm not charging anybody, so it's open to the public, but no charge.
And you agree with that interpretation, Larry, right?
I would.
The mountain bike club here would be on the right side of the line.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, it's like someone gets to the point where they're exploiting a trail system and they're like actively promoting it, advertising it, charging fees, having staff,
That's different.
That's different.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think this gives us a structure to manage that if it comes forth in Underhill. But I think right now, most of these are going to fall into the first category.
Okay. And I had a question on just on number 3, just reference to the 2009 Underhill Trails Handbook, asking that they're built in compliance with that.
Yes.
But the actual language of the book is suggestive. It's not a directive. So I don't know how you word that, but that's kind conflicts, this language conflicts with what the trail handbook suggests.
Yeah, and my answer to that is the Trails Handbook is full of gray areas, you know, and the gray areas arise because there's no municipal official who's enforcing any of that, and to try to do that would be impractical at best.
And I don't think there was no intent of enforcement
No.
in the language of the book anyway. So.
No, and it's a soft language, I think, precisely
Uh-huh.
because they want to encourage people to be thoughtful
Uh-huh.
about laying out or improving trails and not, have it be like, you must do this. It's not that kind of a thing. And that's, really the whole thing about municipal government is that, there's very little coercion involved in almost everything we do in land use permitting.
Uh-huh.
It rarely gets to the point where someone has to put their fist down and say, you have to do this or we're going to try to fine you. It's really more voluntary enforcement based on public education, and the standards exist for a reason. If someone needs an explanation, they sit down with the zoning administrator and they get the explanation. But it's not like there's zoning cops out on the beat every single day, enforcing all of our rules. So we do depend on people, voluntarily following the rules, and the more transparent we can be about what the rules are, the more likely we are to get that voluntary compliance. And I think, the baseline assumption is people are of goodwill and most people will follow the rules, unless there's a reason for them to try to evade them.
I think again, the intent of this whole exercise was to try to clarify somebody who might not necessarily want bike trails and might be averse to just development of trails in general, and might go to the handbook and say, well, just to be adversarial, say that I don't like this bridge wasn't built to the way this is outlined in the Trails Handbook, so it's not compliant, and kind of make an issue out of that.
I wonder if we should soften that somehow. I see what Tim's saying. Could we say is constructed reasonable compliance, or is there some word we can use to soften it so we're not creating?
I mean, it follows the suggestions of the Underhill Trails Handbook, which suggests
suggestions instead of standards?
Yeah, the suggestion is a suggestion, not a standard.
What do you think about that, Larry? Swap out standards for suggestions? Is that too soft? It's
I think
squishy.
it's pretty mushy. I mean, I feel like I didn't read the Trails Handbook word for word, but I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it probably could always be improved, but I think right now they are standards. They're just where it gets squishy is it's like who would enforce those, and how rigid are they? And in this case, because there's no municipal official who's interpreting and enforcing them, there's always open to interpretation at some level.
Would you be opposed to saying the trail is in reasonable compliance with the standards?
Right, I guess
Does that help you?
if you're saying it is compliant, you could just say, well,
But the
I read
book's
the book and I'll take the suggestions, so
Yeah,
it's going to be
I see
how
what you're
I decide to
saying.
build it at the end of the day.
What do you think, Larry? Should it say in reasonable compliance or leave it as?
I would just leave it as is, yeah. Because compliance it's a big word, it's a big term, it could be interpreted in a number of ways. Someone could say, for example, if there's a standard in the Trails Handbook that has 5 different pieces to it, and someone's strictly following 4 of the 5, and one of them is they're a little bit loose about, you could say they're in compliance because 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
That's a B grade in the classroom. So
Is it something that, I don't know, it might not come up for review at the same cycle as the town plan and stuff, but is the Trails Handbook something that maybe
Conservation Commission put
do
that
they
together?
do they review and update that?
No,
Or not?
I think it was written once and no one has touched it.
Yeah.
Well, it was a separate committee according to what it says on the town
Oh, okay.
website.
Right.
Yeah, so a group was commissioned to work on it, and they worked on it, and then
No, it's done.
it's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Unless someone wants to do a new committee.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's rather suggestive versus authoritative
Exactly.
from your reading.
Right.
Yeah.
And then not to elaborate, but number 4, as you mentioned, and the state really regulates the wetlands and stream crossings
Mhm.
and what's allowable within floodplains. So that kind of supersedes the town. So why would the town even offer that you needed a permit through the town if it's really a state permit at the end of the day?
I mean, I think it's mostly just, if someone walks into this office and meets with the zoning administrator about a trails project, I mean, I added the words, and permitted to approved and, by the stream alteration engineer, because someone could just say, oh, I talked to the ANR and they're cool with this. As opposed to, if you applied for and got a permit, piece of paper that proves that you got the state involved and that they approved your project, then that's, the zoning administrator knows it's like, okay, we're good to go either with a permit or with a conditional use review. So it seems like, that having that kind of due diligence in writing is an important wrinkle. And, we have, this appears in a number of different ways throughout the land use regs, where, if you need a state permit, the way that you show it is that you bring in the permit, and you submit that with your subdivision application, or for example, people are required to have approved wastewater designs and wastewater permits when they want to build a house, and you have to bring that permit in order to get your sign off for conditional, for a CO, to close out your permit for building a house. So I think it's appropriate to reference the state permit to be brought in if it needs a permit at all. The only situation in which it's sort of questionable would be where it's exempt from the need for a permit, but we omitted it from that language.
Yeah, that was my point. And so where it's public, obviously we want those conditions, but on the exemptions, I think we were trying to avoid having a permit that could be appealed. So if you're adding in these other areas of the state, which in my opinion aren't really applicable anyway for most of these situations. Yeah. So why are you asking for a permit? It just opens the door for somebody who's adversarial to throw a stick in the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, it's between the property owner and the state about that permit, right? So we don't enforce it. We just ask for proof that it was done, it was achieved.
But you're asking for a town building permit or zoning permit. In addition to that, but that seems redundant.
Well, you would have to do that anyway if you were building a house, or you would have to get a.
Well, you would, if
state
you build a house,
permit
but for a minimally impactful bridge, and most of these regulations in the floodplain we're referencing housing and like bridges for road crossings, not recreational minimally invasive bridges. So in my opinion, it should just be that whole section should be deleted and just have no permit requirement and leave it up to the landowner to follow the state regulations.
So this would be in both the zoning permit and the conditional use sections? You want to take out the sentence about getting an A&R permit?
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to anyway. So yeah, take it out of both of them. Would be my suggestion.
I think it should be in there though, because it just, the zoning administrator might miss something too, right?
Well, and the other argument for having it in there is that the ZA doesn't have specific authority to know what types of stream crossings would pass muster with state regulators. It's not their area of expertise, and so we cede that authority in the process and tell the property owner that they need to go and get that state permit, and then the state has the more developed expertise and technical knowledge to know whether a particular bridge design is going to last and is going to not damage the riparian environment or whatever, damage the wetland. The more we can take out of the hands of the zoning administrator's discretion in a situation like this, the better. And this is an area where there are very specific state rules and guidelines that are probably beyond what we have the capacity in the town to keep an eye on.
Right. Jim, is your position, I'm just trying to understand, is your position that last sentence should come out because that's not the town's business? I'm paraphrasing here, but that's not the town's business, that's between the landowner and the state? Is that
exactly, because that's really the only regulation, and the town doesn't really have jurisdiction over it, so why are they asking for a permit for it? It's just like an extra step to take that could be potentially appealed when you might not even need a permit from the state anyway, so it could just, for an adversarial person, you tie it up, and I think that's what we're trying to avoid.
So if somebody went to the state with a bridge design, let's say, for a bridge crossing on a mountain bike trail, and A&R determined that they're off the hook, then they issue what's called a jurisdictional letter that says that in 5 sentences. We've looked at your project and we've determined that it would not impinge wetland rules for the state. And then it would be signed, it would be on the A&R letterhead, and the person could bring that in instead.
Well, is that the answer, Tim? What if it said approved or exempted?
Well, to me, it seems like it should be the landowner's duty to research the rules. And if it doesn't require a permit based on what the language is, then you don't even need to call the state. But if there's a gray area or you need one, then you need a permit, and you've got to contact the state and get that permit and have the engineer approve the bridge. But it just seems like it's extra red tape for if you read the regulations, well, this doesn't apply, so I'll just build this bridge because it doesn't hit any of the criteria for needing the permit.
But I don't think the landowner is educated enough to determine whether they need a permit. So the zoning administrator would look at the situation, look at a map, see where the bridge is going to go, and say, oh, there's a wetland there, you need to go to the A&R, right?
But you can go speak with the zoning administrator, but to require a permit for it, that's what I'm thinking is not necessary.
Yeah, but also if you apply for a permit, you have to post it on the land where you're building whatever you're building.
Right.
So then that gives the neighbors, they can see that permit posted, and then they can say, oh, what's this? I want to go talk to the zoning administrator about this. I want to be aware of what's going on.
Right.
So that's why I think it should be a local building permit, and then come to the zoning administrator first, and then the zoning administrator would say, yes, you got to go to the A&R to get a permit.
And this is that first line of defense when you talk about education and educating the public. So really, you're the first piece of education that they experience.
The zoning administrator.
Is your reasoning, Mary? I'm just trying to understand it for myself. Like, is it an analogy? Like, I know a house is very different, but is it an analogy like that our regs say you have to go get a wastewater permit, even though it's sort of not? It's just between you and the state, right? But
Yeah, I think that's an apt analogy, because we don't have the expertise and we don't have the authority to issue wastewater permits. Mm-hmm. Actually, I used to work in Charlotte, and Charlotte was one of the only town in the state for a couple of years that actually had the authority to issue wastewater permits. And it was because we were trying to create an expedited path for people to get permits to move forward with building projects, because it typically took the state much longer time. And we just hired an engineer and they did the reviews and issued the permit. But in the end, it didn't save that much time, and we just decided it was costing us $2 for every dollar we took in revenue to offer that little bit of expedited process. And so the select board decided to ditch it, and we gave the authority back to the state. And I think that's similar logic to what most towns follow. It's like if there's a whole set of technical state rules that apply with a state permit at the end of them, then towns don't really want to be responsible for enforcing that. And so, they just say, you go get your state permit, when you get it, bring it back to us, and it's a condition of proceeding with your local permit application.
how do other people feel about this too?
I think it should be there because I see the benefit of both.
Or
I don't feel strongly one way or the
you're
other.
agnostic?
Okay, that's not-
We know it's in Bill's, right?
I think you should have building permit, and you need to get a building.
You would leave it as is, basically. Okay.
I mean, it's nothing to get a building permit. It costs you like whatever, $50 or
Yeah.
whatever. You come in, you apply, you get it, you post it, and it's a good way for everybody to be aware of what's happening.
How do you feel, Tim?
Yeah, I think, I don't mind how it is written now. I do like what Tim's bringing up about just leaving it in the state's hands in a way. One thing that's ringing in my ears is what David said last time about the permitting requirement being a little bit buried in the language, and maybe there's a way to move up the idea that the state, it's your responsibility to find out what state requirements you need to make, and getting that in the header instead of where it's buried in like 4 here that it says and permitted.
Yeah. And
It's
it
just
is
a
the trails
thought, but yeah.
in this language here.
Yeah, so like in the handbook there, that's the Trails Handbook, and then that 1.3.f.
That's in the language.
That's up top
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Do you think there's is there a middle ground where it begins with the thing where we say,
Yeah.
and I can't see it right at the moment, so forgive me, go like, and any, this isn't it, but any bridge permit, any bridge permits if required or something like that? Does that feel more like okay in your book or no?
Yeah.
And that it's clear that they need to have that state one in place if we're gonna keep a local permit, that you make sure that you get
What do you
that
think,
first.
Larry?
That's fine. I mean, I think this is, in the land use regs of 1.3F statement, I think that's pretty explicit, especially this second sentence here.
Yeah,
Nails it, right?
Yeah.
okay. So what is, you would prefer to leave it as is?
I'm fine either way. It's like whatever you all decide is best. I can just move this, I can copy this sentence into the,
Well, let's take a quick little, not a formal vote, just a show of hands. Who thinks we should leave it as is? As it is right now?
As is with two, yeah.
As it currently is, no changes whatsoever, exactly like it reads right now.
Yeah.
Who thinks that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tamid, how do you feel?
I think there could be a little tweak, but I'm not feeling super strong about it.
If you had to pick a route, which route
Yeah,
would you
we
pick?
could go with it the way it is.
I'm not trying to convince you, I'm just trying to
No.
figure out where everybody is.
Yeah.
Are you okay going to the public hearing with it as is, Tim, and see what happens, or
I think I stated my.
you stated your opinion?
Right, yes.
Okay,
Overruled, but that's all right.
I think one part of Tim's concern that I think is
well, I hate to just
Fixable.
ignore it, like, what can we, yeah.
well, it's fixable, is that right now the sentence as it reads, it applies to all applications of this kind. And you could say, if applicable, blah, blah, blah.
What if we did that?
That kind of gets to the same point.
Yeah.
Can we write if applicable, comma,
Yeah,
beginning
of
of each
course.
one of those sentences?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Is everyone good with that?
Yeah.
That makes everyone,
Yeah, then you would only need a building permit if it was applicable.
okay, there we go. We did it.
That helps.
Consensus.
Consensus, yeah, all right.
Yay.
Well, we'll wait for Larry for a second. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tim. Oh, do you have other ones, or is that?
That was it. I guess the last one was just in the regulations. It would almost be nice to have a trails line item, because everything is to decipher what the rules are. It's got spread through different areas of the language. Or not, you can see if it's in there, it's in there, but if somebody wanted to find out what the trails regulations were, it would be hard to, you'd have to be kind of digging around.
That maybe is more of a table of contents label kind of
Right.
thing.
Exactly.
Get it up in the table of contents.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because the table of contents would have to have that tied together on the
Yeah.
unified trails statement.
And forget one little phrase that we discussed. Specify below.
Oh, one other small point
Yes.
is just the square footage
Yep, the one.
trigger. I thought maybe raising that to like 500 possibly.
That's definitely gonna, if we get a comment at the public hearing, that's gonna be it.
Wait, it's 150 now,
It's
right?
150.
So if you're building a bridge that's 3 feet
Bridge or
wide,
boardwalk
that's
or
50
something.
feet long. Yeah, right. So if you want to build a boardwalk that were 150 feet long.
Yeah, well, like if you look at Hard Myers in that area, on those mountain bike trails, I'm wondering what that.
You can't take that one away.
Right. But
Can I ask you a question about this, Larry?
Yeah.
Just process wise?
Yeah,
Let's say this
I like
goes,
that bridge.
it's probably more than.
let's say we leave it as is.
Yeah, I think
for now.
so.
This goes to a public
At
hearing.
least 500.
7 people show up and say it should be 500, to use Tim's number.
Yes.
So we say, okay, it should be 500. We don't have to then like redo anything, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I think the trigger for rewarning it as a new public hearing is if you are adding significant language and new provisions, or, something that really drastically changes the meaning and the effect of what it is that's being proposed. But just tweaking a number or a word here and there doesn't, you don't need to redo it.
Are you okay taking the 150 into the public hearing, Tim, and seeing what the comments are?
Sure.
Because it's less than 150, you don't need a permit. More than 150, you have to get a permit. Correct?
Yeah.
So, if somebody wants to build a 500-foot long boardwalk, then
They can get a
it
permit.
should be looked at.
Yeah, we were trying to find the middle ground, so I'd just be curious what people think of it. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Let's see take it out for a road test and see what people say. Kind of like the sawmill stuff in some ways, right?
Yeah.
Did you get both if applicable, sorry?
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt.
No.
Okay, anything else, Tim?
That's it.
All right. That takes us to,
Do you want
sorry.
to move
Oh, we
this
have
as?
to-
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
Larry. All right, does anyone want to make a motion that we're making a motion that we approve these, Larry, and take them to the public hearing?
So moved.
All right, second? Anyone? Jen, all in favor? Woo. All right. We're behind a little bit, but that's okay, because we got, no, don't apologize.
We're good.
You're pushing us into our A game for event venues. Okay. You're making us better, thank you. I'm just gonna shut up for event venues and hand over to you, Larry, because you were doing a kind of substantial revision.
Yes.
So the one we have doesn't have the revisions, but it pretty much says the same thing. The one we got.
In the packet
Yeah, why don't you hand out the copies?
for event venues or for?
Yeah, for event venues.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want me to read, or you?
Sure, yeah.
You got one, Tim? Oh, Tim's got one. You're good,
This is,
Tim? Okay.
oh, it must be this. 7-7.
Okay. You crossed out rural character, Larry? That's our favorite phrase in our regulations. What are you doing?
It's a mushy term. Let's agree to slay the mushiness.
Trying to get it
Let's go
out of the
for,
mushiness.
let's go for explicit language, black and white terms and language.
Character. Yeah, wait, where? Oh, I see.
Okay, so highlights, changes are in yellow. Some of this we did talk about and see last time around. And I did, so specifically I changed adjacent neighbors, rural character, I just simplified it to neighbors in the community. And then we had some conversation about hours of operation. And so I thought, well, it's not, if you work for a Vermont tent company, you're on the job pretty early in the morning. So you can start set up at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. That seemed pretty reasonable. And it has to stop by 11 p.m. And then basically what I did here was observation about the first draft is that in part B of A, which should be 1 and 2, not A and B, but it says avoid adverse environmental noise, traffic, and nuisance impacts that event venues may have. So it's almost like defining a standard in the negative. It's like what we don't want, and that's usually not a good template for writing regulations. So you should say what the actual standards will be rather than saying what you don't want. And so these are conditional use reviews, and then you have specific standards in section C. And so what I did was D, E, and F. I brought in the 3 elements of our existing language from temporary structures and uses, because these are pretty specific and straightforward standards. So, for example, conditional use application shall include details around approved road access from a public or private road, driveway and parking areas, traffic circulation, pedestrian safety, landscape signage, site lighting, and a stormwater management and erosion control plan. So these are all elements of the standard site plan review. And it's what you would require for any commercial type of venue that could attract hundreds of people in a given event. Also that you would have to meet minimum zoning district setbacks for accessory structures, which are a little bit more generous or liberal than setbacks for residences.
Mm-hmm.
So, accessory structures can be, is it 20 feet from a property line or 10 feet? I forget.
I think it's 20 from, most is 20 from the sideline.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a critical one.
Yeah, and my thinking there was really just that, sometimes, you're going to have potentially purpose-built event venue structures like the one on Pleasant Valley Road that we were talking about, but you also might have people who repurpose an unused barn, which is already exists, and it used to be a dairy barn, and now someone wants to make it into an event venue. And in this case, I think it's appropriate to not say, well, you have to move the barn 30 feet to get it out of the setback or whatever. It's like you go with it where it is, unless it's non-conforming structure, which has its own set of rules already in our regulations. And that you can't encroach upon required setback from surface waters and wetlands in that section we were just talking about. And then you also have to demonstrate adequate sanitary and trash collection facilities based on the maximum capacity for participants as specified in the Vermont Division of Fire Safety Permit and a permit documenting compliance with state wastewater regulations. Now, event venues can and do use portalets during the season in lieu of like a permanent wastewater field or leach field. And that's okay according to state regulations if it's for one-off events, and that they're maintained. So it's really between the property owner and the state as far as how those rules are applied. And
I got a question about that.
Yes.
I went to a wedding in a brand new barn,
Mm-hmm.
and but they had one of those really fancy portalets.
Mm-hmm.
Is that between the landowner and the state
Yeah.
to do that? Okay, so so we don't need to mention that here because
I think
that's an adequate septic.
Right. I think it's just good to say whatever the state requires is what's required. So, if somebody, and because these are commercial operations, they're subject to the stringent rules in the Vermont Division of Fire Safety. So those are structured for commercial businesses, and they do have state inspectors who will come in and verify on site that the rules have been followed, and will check off of the list and issue someone a permit before they can commence operations. We don't have to worry about any of that. I'm just including that phrase here because I want people to reinforce that we know that the state's looking and that the state requires a permit for these kinds of operations. So again, it's a public education aspect of it. And anybody in town who's concerned about that aspect of it, like, do they have enough portalets, or, do they have enough emergency vehicle access. All those things are overseen by the state. And so, they can just, if they came to the zoning administrator and said, can you prove to me that these people are following the rules, then they could just pull out the Division of Fire Safety approval, and, that would be proof that the rules were followed.
Are there any special zoning considerations in regards to like alcohol permitting and stuff like that?
So the town has an authority to issue liquor licenses and to regulate them, and we can issue the license and then we can yank it if somebody's not following the rules in terms of how they're serving or who's doing the serving. And that is an authority that the town already has and already uses. And it's the select board that makes a decision on that. So they actually, when a business is proposing to serve alcohol at events, they have to come to the select board and fill out the paperwork for a license, and then the select board convenes as a, I think it's called a Bureau of something, liquor control, I forget the term for it, and the select board makes the decision and authorizes the permit. There's a fee associated with it, and then, it is mostly goodwill enforcement, but if, somebody's observes something at an event that looks like, people are getting drunk and are leaving the site drunk in their cars or whatever, then they can report it to the town, and the town can yank the permit and not allow any more liquor to be served at future events. So that's a pretty solid enforcement regime. It seems to work in most cases. There's always going to be issues that come up, with people who are not following the rules, but in general, it is permitted and enforced at the local level.
So the town already has huge leverage over, no liquor, you can't serve liquor, you can't host events, so. Okay.
So the only involvement with the state is just to provide them with a copy of the permit?
For the liquor permit? I think so, yeah.
Okay.
That's how it works. And the state does have the authority through the State Department of Liquor Control, or whatever it's called, to do spot enforcements. They can visit, a site or an event. And they do this all the time with, convenience stores that sell beer and wine, for example. They'll stop by and make sure that the person selling the product is not underage, and, that nobody's is buying product who's underage and that kind of thing. And people do get cited by the state, but that's mostly just for fixed retail kind of operations or for bars, permanent bars. But this kind of thing, it definitely is, can be an issue. And as long as people get the permit and follow the rules, and there's no complaints. If the cat bothers you, we can
Not at all.
separate it.
Not at all.
Remaining to admit Anoki is the planning commission. Is at the table.
How about as an alternate?
We'll call him Little David.
Yeah, and I did change, last but not least, we had 500 feet as the required minimum distance from the event venue applying for a permit, and any other structure not owned by the property owner. And I thought about that a little bit, and I think that the motivation for including a distance that large was perhaps there was an implicit assumption that event venues would be so noisy that it would be considered a public nuisance.
It was noise, that was
Yeah, but the thing about event venues is that often it's an acoustic band that's playing, either unamplified or, there's a small amplification system that has a dial that you can quickly turn it down. So, and, the structure in question here might not be a residence, it might be a barn, it might be a commercial building, could be somebody's outhouse, I don't know. So, it seemed like 500 feet was overly broad. And so I'm suggesting here that it be 250 feet, just as a number to throw out.
I'm wondering, aside from the feet, we've got to aside for a second, I don't know how everyone feels about it. Why did we write it of any structure? We were thinking about someone's house, right? We just
Yeah.
wanted it to be crazy loud by somebody's house. Why did we say of any structure? Can't remember.
Should put house or ADU, maybe,
It feels like it should say like an
Residence.
occupied,
An occupied residence?
yeah.
versus structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
right? Like, to your point, if it's 249 feet from an empty shed, like, who cares?
Yeah.
So everybody's good with that?
I think that was our intent, right? I think it was written wrong. It was pre-Larry, so.
Okay.
Should F reference all necessary state permits?
Oh.
as opposed to just the fire safety and wastewater, because there's also like ADA compliance, and they do have like electrical inspection and plumbing inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they probably regulate the parking
Yeah.
and all that too, so. It's just a blanket state
It's
requirement.
always been news to me. You know, people say it'll take lots of people, but it's never happened to me. It's sweet.
Yeah, I remember Sandy like warned me about it on my first. Are you sure? He seems.
It's very sweet.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just Sandy.
Let's not go down that road.
Sandy's the world's nicest person. That's the joke there.
That's good. Okay, so I've added, and any other required state permits to the end of that. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the Vermont Division of Fire Safety is pretty stringent, you know, and all that stuff, plumbing, electrical. I think they, if we can be confident that they take care of all that stuff, and make sure everything's safe. You're a builder, you do that, right? Yeah. I'm sure that you have to deal with a ornery inspector in your time.
And then this last section deals with like if I want to host a wedding at my house for my friend or something like that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then I just need to come in and talk to the VA.
Yes. Yeah, and I took out, this is somewhat unrelated, but I decided to propose that while we're doing this kind of stuff, that we take out that last sentence because of the issue I called out earlier, that, you know, if someone's I mean, it's one thing if it's the event is being held under a big tent, yeah, you want to take it down at the end of the event. But, you know, if they're holding it in a barn, no, we're not going to make them take the barn down after they hold their adult child's wedding there. You know,
I mean, no one really does this, right?
Yeah, as far, I don't know exactly how it works, but it's one of those things that
Oh,
just
wait,
jumped out at me.
When somebody was telling me that this has happened before. Anyway, I think it has happened.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, someone's renting a tent from Vermont Tent. I mean, that's going to be like, what is it, $1,000 a day or something?
Yeah.
You know, so of course you're going to take it down right
Yeah.
after the event.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you want to force somebody to take down a permanent structure.
Yeah. Okay.
But it happens the next day a lot of the time too, and that's the only other thing I meant to bring up last time too was about this 6 hours in duration, including setup and tear down, feels too restrictive.
Oh yeah, we do need to fix that. If they set up at 8 a.m. and it sits there until 5 p.m.
Right. Yeah, or if you're having, you know, if they're having a farm dinner and they're getting set up first thing in the morning.
Oh wait, it says not including setup and tear down.
Oh, it does say not included.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, are we good? Are you okay with
I
saying
mean, I think I don't know that it. I don't know what. I guess if it's like a, you know, we're not going to have a 7-hour techno fest probably, or but.
Rave.
I don't know what we. I don't know if it's a multi-day thing. Isn't that? And it's 4 hours over 2 days. Is that not allowed?
Remember though that this whole section, this addition to the land use regs, is for a zoning permit. And the zoning permits are permanent, they run with the land.
Okay, right.
So what we're trying to do here in these two phrases, B and C, A and B, is that, you know, we're trying to say in general, you have 6 hours to run your event, and then that doesn't include setup and tear down. And in general, you have to operate, noise will be limited between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m.
Okay.
And those are pretty vague standards, but I mean, they're specific enough that someone will know what's going on there. And, you know, there might be that a wedding event, including a, you know, ceremony and the reception might drag on longer than 6 hours. So if 6 hours is too short, let's fix that now.
Yeah, I mean, it might be that 8 might do it, but yeah, I just worry that, I don't know that, you know, there's going to be tickets written for that often, but it's.
Do we want to say 8 hours though? Like, what if someone got married at 4 and then they did photos and then I could see it being 7 hours.
I feel like 8 feels a little safer, but it's not a huge deal. But
Okay.
Are people good with 8?
Yep.
Yeah. I might as well get it right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that doesn't apply to the temporary
Nope, this is just the
permit.
permit.
Actually,
Yeah, I mean, the temporary permits are really more for things that people have like on their land, that are one-off type of events. And the permit, because it's a zoning permit, the zoning administrator can put whatever restrictions he or she feels are appropriate for that type of event. So if someone wanted to have, to put up some big tents and have like a yard sale that lasted the whole weekend, the temporary permit could say, this is good from, Thursday at 7 p.m. till Monday at, noon or something like that.
Mhm.
So it's just, I think it's specific to whatever it is that someone's applying for the temporary use permit to do. So it'd be different for a yard sale than it would be for someone having a family wedding on their property, or, I don't know, maybe even a carnival coming to town.
yeah, we were hoping, when's that?
Who's hosting a carnival?
We had a really interesting discussion in Charlotte about this, because they
Was
said, somebody might, those carnival companies that have the mechanical rides. It's like, what if someone wants to come in and do that? Like, in most cases, it's completely benign, right? Well, it's a great thing bring the kids to, but it's not like that's without risk, I mean, you have to have the parking spaces for people who are gonna come, you have to have sanitary facilities, you have to have enough space for emergency vehicles to get in and out quickly, if they need to, and
When
it's
the
like.
sketchy roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. So, then it becomes a first item on the national news. And I tried to talk them into passing a special events ordinance where someone would have to come in and get a permit like this for temporary use. And they were like, no, we don't want to go there. It's like, okay. You're exposing the town to some liability here, because if a carnival did come in and wanted to set up, you have nothing to say about it. Right? There's no mechanism to enforce reasonable public health and safety standards.
Huh.
Anyway,
But Underhill's covered.
Underhill's covered. That's right. We require a zoning permit, just don't have to take it down at the end.
This is great. Well, do people have comments on this? Any specific comments, or do people like it with
No, I
being
like it.
fixed?
It works.
Yeah, I think so.
So, do you have anything else on it, or should we do a motion? And this is our last item for the public hearing, right? I'll make a motion that we approve this amendment for event venues. Is there a second?
Second.
Art, all in favor?
Aye.
So we're a little ahead of schedule, but that's okay, because one thing I didn't think of, Larry, is what are we tackling next? That's maybe something the group could talk about for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Do you have thoughts?
My brain is empty right now.
Okay. One thing is we might not have to decide tonight. We could do it over email
Sure,
too. Would you prefer that?
sure. It'll be fine. I mean, I have, if anybody's interested in seeing it, I do have a very long spreadsheet that the DRB prepared with changes that they thought were something to work on.
We went through that whole
Did you?
thing at one point, but that doesn't mean that I'd be interested in, when you have time, you skimming it and letting us know what you think.
Okay.
Does anyone have a burning desire to, there's a topic that's been on your mind that we should make sure that we tackle next?
The only one I remember is coming up out of the ADUs was about short-term rental stuff.
Oh, we could talk about short-term rentals.
That's a good.
That's a good one.
Potential for additional tax revenue for
Yeah.
Airbnb. And
Oh, the local option tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Because we could get that on the agenda
Maybe
for
at
the meeting too, right? To have that.
Maybe.
Did you talk to Brad about the local option tax? And this Brad telling me that we're not a golden town or whatever the phrase is, and that we would need to change our charter?
I don't think you have to change the charter now. I think the legislature actually just tweaked that, to eliminate that requirement. And they also upped the amount that the town gets to keep.
Oh,
And the amount that you can charge, it's not no longer just 1%.
We
Right.
should definitely talk about that.
Could we,
That seems like.
yeah. Could we put local option tax and short-term rentals in the next agenda then? Look, there's 2 items right there.
We do have for the
Oh,
next
the guy's
meeting.
coming in.
Yeah, we have Chris Sheehan from Jericho who's going to come talk to us about the wastewater system.
How long
proposal.
is he coming for?
It's up to us. I mean, I think he said that he thought he could cover it in half an hour, but it's up to us.
Should we say 45 minutes of questions, and then we can also do, well, I think we have our whole meeting then. If we did him and then local option tax and short-term rentals.
Mhm.
Everyone agree? Yeah, we
Sounds
should,
good.
we should get local option. The only reason we didn't do it was Brad told me we needed a charter change,
Mhm.
and we couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
everyone was in favor of it.
Yeah,
If I
right.
recall.
Yeah, I remember. Sheehan is the Jericho planning administrator.
Sorry.
He's gonna come in and talk to us about the sun.
Yeah. Which is still,
That'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
yeah.
Everybody
asks
asks me about
Yeah,
that
and then
every
we'll
time.
actually have something to tell them.
Well, you know, yeah, so I don't know, it's not in Jericho.
Yeah.
A little.
And our next meeting is,
Oh, yeah. August
24th?
Oh,
Yes.
24th, yeah.
July 23rd. Yep.
Oh, I actually will not be here. I'm out of town and I can't.
So 24th, what day is that? That's a Thursday, obviously. The 24th.
Yeah. 2 weeks from tonight.
I'll watch the recording, Larry. I'm legitimately interested in what he has to say, but I won't be here, so.
Okay.
Just for the record, I'm 100,000,000% in favor of the local option tax.
We'll make sure that gets.
Me too.
Okay, anything else? Otherwise, we can adjourn early.
Well, minutes?
Oh, minutes, thank you, Larry.
Can you bring those up?
Yes, please. Does anyone have any comments, concerns, questions about the June 19th minutes? Nope. So does anyone want to make a motion that we approve the June 19th minutes? Anyone? Roy?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? To all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, who seconded that?
Tim.
Roy? Who seconded?
Well, if there's nothing else, then does anyone want to make a motion that we adjourn?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Jen. Is there a second? Roy, all in favor?
Aye.
Jen and Roy.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Nice.
Yeah, thank
Well
you.
run.